Very warm welcome, my friends, and it's time to crush. This time, we are going to look at a very specific matchup, which is Phi, which is upside down. I just realized that's done pretty quickly. Here we go. Okay, which is Phi. Yeah, it's one of the most difficult matchups for Bravo. I know that. And I agree with that. It's not that I say it's easy. There are two types of Phi. One is Searing Emberblade Phi, which is actually the one, in my opinion, that is easier to handle than the other one. And then there is Kodachi Phi, when they use two Kodachis like Katsu does. Mostly, they also have two different headpieces. Kodachi Phi uses a Mask of Momentum. Well, let me put it here. Which says every time the third chain link, the attack action card hits, if it's the third or higher chain link, you may draw a card. So they easily go to threaten two of those triggers with Kodachi. If they use Emberblade, they mostly use Mask of the Pouncing Links, or at least from what I've seen my opponents do. This says when an attack action card you control hits, you may crack this card, this headpiece, in order to search your deck for an attack action card with 2 or less base damage. Targets for that are mostly two. If they play the combo version, which is Lava Burst, which gets +3, so it comes in for 5 base damage. If you if you have a chain link 4 or greater, sometimes it even comes in for 6 if you have those and already attacked with one of these Phoenix Flames. So this one comes in for 1 because it's the normal Phoenix Flame ability. That means one attack with 2 or less base damage is already played. This comes in as a second one, so it deals 6 damage. 1 plus to that, 1 plus 3 to the own effect. The other target would Soul to Wound be, which has the same effect about Tiger Star Turquoise, but the difference is this one gets +1 for every attack chain link that has hit this chain. So mostly comes in for 6, 7, or 8. These are mostly used. These are mostly used with Mask of the Pouncing Links, but we will get into that later. First of all, what do we do against a Phi, or what is our plan of doing against Phi? The biggest thing is by far disrupting. So we are on Alathos, like with every matchup. Nope. And our equipment slot is also the complete basic equipment loadout we can use with these who are used to block, and these who are used to block and also have a utility ability. So what we do is we do the seismic search plan, of course. So whenever we have one floating, we just create a seismic search token. This one is very important in this matchup because it lets us fix one bad hand. So we can have one bad hand more than we could before. Before we had this, Into Ninja was one hand without a disruption, and after that you're dead. Now we can have 2 because we can fix one of those, or at least if we have the disruption but not the cost to pay it. So we go with the complete basic equipment package. What do we have for sideboarding? The obvious stuff first. I mean, what do we do against a deck that sometimes does Arsenal? We put down Command and Conquer. The other one would be Chokeslam, which is in my opinion one of the crush effects we want to see because it disables Phoenix Flame and also the whole combo. I'll go into that later on in the video. I have a script, so I actually know what I should say when I should say what. Next up is Sink Below. It can prevent a mask trigger that comes in for 4 on its own, which is great. Erase Phase. It disrupts some of the abilities. If it's an Emberblade Fi, they won't be able to get Go Again on the Emberblade. They won't get Go Again on other cards, like Lava Vein Loyalty and so on. So this is okay against Fi. It's not game breaking, but you can, if it's the fitting turn, it can disrupt pretty badly. And the Yellow Pummel I run way too often. But I also have to say, Yellow Pummel does not get respected by Fi whatsoever, so you won't be blocked and you draw a card from their hand. Normally don't pummel your hammers against Fi if not necessary. So, now, what is the big plan we have to do? We need to disrupt. That's the only thing we can do against Fi. And there are some spells that are able to disrupt. Because if you just block, we block 3 damage per card. If we disrupt and take away cards from them or take away action points from them, we block 4 or more per card. So which cards can do that? We will go in with the Chokeslam first. Chokeslam is very good at disrupting. It's a 4 cost, so with a blue hand, you can, with 2 blues in hand, you can still dominate it and swing with it. It's 8, so most likely it will crush against Fi. Some of the Fis do run a fridge against us, which is also what I do against a Bravo when I'm on Fi. So this would be the equipment loadout, including 2 harmonized Kodachis. That's what I run against Bravo. So the thing is, it's not the best plan to play Chokeslam against Fi. I'm just using that like this. Here we go. 2 Kodachis like that. So you can see it. This blocks 2, this blocks 2, this blocks 2. Those 2 have Blade Break, so they can just be used once. So what I want to do with Chokeslam is playing him early, hoping it's one of those turns where it's preventing Soul to Wound and Lava Burst from hitting, or from hitting hard, so they will block with those equipment, maybe even that one, because that one is the most annoying equipment for us if they're on Kodachi. The good thing is, if they don't respect it, or they don't even know what it does, and they just let the damage through, and they go with their turn, Soul to Wound comes in for 2, and Lava Burst comes in for 2 as well. If they also use Art of War, which is also a very annoying card against us, to pump, or coming in for a Phoenix Flame, all these things don't bother us. So he can do that whatever he wants. But the main goal is actually to crack those 2, or maybe even these, if they have a bad hand for blocking. Which is possible. I had it. I already also had it that this, and this was used against the Chokeslam. So the disruption is the worst we can have with the cards that I'm going to show you, but it's better than nothing, and it also can help to prevent that crucial damage that otherwise would have killed you if you didn't have that crush effect online whilst being hit. I'm already saying sorry for using cards to show around. I think it's more comfortable for me, and also I think it's more comfortable to look at. It's playmat. You're used to having a playmat, so that's why I'm going for that. And now we're going with a solid version of Disruption, which is the Crippling Crush. It mostly doesn't get blocked at all. You draw 2 cards, which is a prevention of maybe 8 damage. If you just block with 4 cards, which you would need to have this, you would prevent 12 damage, but you deal 11 damage also. And maybe if the Fi player is a little bit scared, he will chug in those 3 equipments, which means no mask and no Shukos, which means not as spiky turns, and -1 counter on this. so no more prevention of crush effects most of the time. If they use defense reactions, they are in the disadvantage anyway, because they are preventing themselves from having big turns against you. So yeah, Crippling Crush is a very solid answer, or a very solid disruption for use against the Fi. Now up for my opinion the best disruption. We have the advantage against compared to Oldhim. We can dominate this. This dominated for 9 hits. The most annoying attack afterwards is this. And yeah, I know it's a proxy. I'm using the original one in my Bravo deck, which I have right here, but I didn't want to mix those decks up before. Here are my original copies. For training with friends and checking up some matchups, I do use proxy so I don't have to switch them around. And if I decide to play on an official event, I'll just switch them out real quick. Is Enlightened Strike or Command and Conquer, which is also proxy, because I'm honest, for those I only have 3 copies I'm using for my tournament deck, which is Bravo at the moment. So yeah, those are the hardest hitting cards after Spinal Crush. Most of the time they don't have that, so after that just any attack for 4 or 3 is coming in. Mostly they just chuck the cards away to get Emberblade working, or if they don't play Emberblade, they'll just attack with a single attack. So it's the most crucial card to play against Fi. If you have 2 or 3 of those, it's mostly settled, because they can't really have the big turns. You deal damage, they don't. They don't really deal damage. And now comes up a sideboard card I already mentioned just before. Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer is a really good card into Fi. It deals either 3 damage and takes away 1 card, which is already pretty good, or it takes away 2 cards, which is also pretty good. If you can pummel it with either yellow, red or blue. I didn't take out the blue ones because they're not essentially used for pummeling. It comes in for 10, it deals 4 damage and takes 3 cards. 4 cards even. The 2 cards blocked, 1 card from Arsenal and 1 card discard. So they take 3 cards. They only have 1 card left if they have an Arsenal, which they do because you play a Command Conquer. They have only 1 card left, which is also just attack with a weapon, or if it's a red one that costs 0, just a swing on maximum, which is a pretty good thing to have against Fi, since he doesn't really hit back that hard, and he has no chance to activate Mask of Momentum. Next up is Erase Phase. It's the worst disruption in general. I think Chokeslam is the worst crush disruption we have. Erase Phase is just there to have more Command and Conquer-ish things, which is low cost but still can do something. It costs 2, comes in for 6. We can have this one in Arsenal, this, and another red in hand, and also 1 blue in hand. So we can pitch the blue for Erase Phase, have 1 floating, pitch another red for pummeling it. In this situation it would play Command and Conquer, of course, but if it's something else, we can pummel it pretty easily, which is the same advantage we have on Command and Conquer, but just more. And the crush, the hit effect is not really that bad. It prevents Phoenix Flame from being active at all. Is a plan to use Searing Emberblade? Where is it? Oh, it's not there. Where is my Emberblade? Emberblade. That doesn't really work at all. Also, so yeah, you're deactivating some cards with it. Not really much, but better than nothing. It's just there because we're not allowed to play 6 Command and Conquers, and I'm only running 2 of those, like you've seen in the sideboard guide. Then Terra Sunder is also a mini Crippling Crush if you want it like that way. It's not really good, but you can just chug it off with 3 blues if you don't have any reds left. If it's for some reason goes to the late game, you can use this very easily to disrupt, and mostly they just take 7 and chuck 2 cards away, which is not totally bad, but it still is not great. What do we have otherwise? Pummel, which is always great if your crush doesn't crush, and you want it to crush and you want to have more disruption. For example, if it's just a chokeslam, or if you have any blue crush that you can play, put a pummel on top of it. It deals more damage. It takes a card away. It's always good to think about using pummels in this matchup. Own attack action cards. Now to 2 honorable mentions in my opinion is Rouse the Ancients. If you can go more aggro than Fi does, for example in your turn, if Fi starts and it's your turn 0 or your turn 1, for 7 and Hammer is always also not too bad. It's always going to take 13 damage, or if you have another crush that you can play, it's even more than that. But it's not something I would play or would be my main strategy, because it's just damage. If you stall after that, they can just overrun you. And Macho Grande is insanely good to finish off the game. If you just can say, okay, easy, I can save 2 blues plus this, so 3 blues for my turn. I'm not able to dominate, attack anything, or just with 6, which they may be able to block out with a Sink Below if they play that. Macho Grande, they need a Sink Below in hand and a Sink Below in arsenal in order to block it out, or have lots of equipments left in order to block it out. If they have a Sink Below in arsenal and a 2 block, it's mostly game. So that's why I would run this for the late game. Okay, now to what Fi does. We know what we can do, we know what we should do. So what does Fi do? This boogeyman of many of my Bravo Bro friends on the Discord channel of As from Go Again Gaming. So we have these cards in their equipment slots that are actually very hurtful for us. The other equipment is Tide Flippers to give Go Again to one of the finisher cards, Mask of Momentum for the draw, Tiger Strike Shuko for blocking, and also maybe putting 2 damage through, and Flame Scale Furnace for blocking. Mostly people use Flame Scale Furnace against me. If they don't, your crush will hit even easier, and I can't see more than 1 Tunic trigger getting through in the matchup we play with Disruption, or even maybe 2. So that would make the out of war turns even more dangerous. So, in my opinion, harmonized Kodachi version is way harder to beat than Searing Emberblade version, just because they have more hits they can do per turn. Here every single card is valued bigger or more importantly than with this version, because here 1 blue can already attack for 2 and 1 card that costs something, which is at least 4 to 5 damage. This one alone with 1 blue, you can just swing for 3. So this one has more card value per se, and it's 3 hits, here it's 1 hit. And if you have a red one, it's 2 hits and 3 hits. 3 hits also already threatens to draw a card from Kodachi, so they can even threaten to draw a card from Mask of Momentum with 2 cards in hand, 1 to pitch and 1 to play. They can't do that with that. So that's like the main advantage they have. And if I just don't block, they draw a card and maybe can just continue attacking. I've never lost to an Emberblade version up until now. I mostly played against Harmonized Kodachi. There I have a not so good win rate, if I'm honest. I'm definitely below 50%. It's more like 30 to 40%, because of the big turns they can just pull out of nowhere. Searing Emberblade can't do it, pull them out of nowhere. You see them coming, so you can react to that. My win rate against Staring Emberblade is 100% up until now, but like I said, it's just like 5 games. So it's not too representative, to be honest. So, yeah, the biggest difficulty with Kodachi is they can threaten 2 mask triggers per game, per turn, which makes it way harder. Also, Phoenix Flame is basically a Kodachi that can trigger mask. So if they use Phoenix Flame once in a while, they don't use it as much as with Searing Emberblade, because those aren't Draconic Chainlinks, so it doesn't get that cheap to play. But they sometimes just put cards on after each other to also get a free Phoenix Flame after that, which they can use to trigger Mask of Momentum. Phoenix Flame is go again, so they can play even further if they want. And I also have to say that our big friend we mostly use in most matchups to prevent stuff from happening isn't that good against Harmonized Kodachi Phi, because they still have 2 cards left. They probably even have 3 cards left with Arsenal, and can still deal about 10 damage. If it happens to that, they can maybe use Emberblade attack with those and attack. Here they can use Kodachi attack, Phoenix Flame attack. They can use 1 Chainlink less with that, which is 4 damage, which is something to respect. 4 damage is 4 damage. And against Kodachi Phi, Spinal Crush is like the only thing that can prevent it from going completely over the top. So in Emberblade, both of those cards are good. Very good. In Kodachi, this one is okay. This one is good. So that's the main difference between the 2 archetypes we are tackling most of the times. Next up, here, if your Phi player prevents or comes up against you and shows you something like that, you can be assured the disruption play is the best possible solution to go. If they don't have a Phoenix Flame, it's on them. Let's be honest. But they mostly present it like that. This being the grave, and then open it up like that. Oh, and this one uses this mask, not the other. And they have 1 big turn, which you need to survive. After that, you just should be able to block efficiently, and it should be okay to play the matchup. I'm not saying you always win against it. I did... Wow. I did win 1 game just by sheer luck of my opponent not blocking efficiently, and me just crushing through his defense and preventing damage from happening through to a Spinal Crush that they could have prevented if they would have blocked better, but they didn't. Here also a little tip or a little hint or a little notch for Phi players. This one. You can also use it defensively in order to prevent a crush from happening. you can play it and use the last mode. The first and the second last mode, which reads okay, +1/+1 for blocking and attacking, and you can block with your arsenal. It can help to survive the last turn, if you would die otherwise. My opponent could have done it at the last pro quest, my round 1 opponent, and they didn't think about it. It's how I won. So, one of the most annoying cards, Phoenix Flame. Why is it annoying? It is 1 more damage, which is annoying in itself, and it is also annoying because it is able to trigger this friend here. So the thing is, you always have to remember, oh, can they use Phoenix Flame from grave after they attack with this? And if yes, go they up to Chainlink 3 if they attack with Phoenix Flame? If yes, do I have equipment to block it? If no, maybe block the attack before that, so it doesn't make too much sense to get Phoenix Flame out of the grave to attack for 1, which is just 1 damage and does nothing else. But that's very, very difficult to handle. How do we handle Phoenix Flame? We have multiple usages that we can do against it. Most of the time, this is the solution anyway against any aggro matchup. And also, Chokeslam helps us to prevent this from hitting at all, because even if it gets pumped by the Tiger Stripe Chukos, this effect will also be nullified, so Tiger Stripe Chukos also won't work on that if it would work on that. So it still comes in for 0 and it doesn't crush at all. It doesn't hit at all and doesn't trigger Mask of Momentum, which is like those 2 cards can prevent that from happening very easily. You have more solutions, which is one of them is blocking, always of course. But for example, this one or any card that blocks. But I would say this one would be more in line with our disruption plan, where we want to prevent damage by attacking and also dealing damage. Okay, so this would be annoying card number 1, which is not the most annoying card in my opinion, but it's still one that can potentially kill us if we are not respecting it too much. Next up is Art of War, which can make the block values way harder. They can draw cards from that. They can make their chain link harder, which also helps those 2 fellas here. And it is a staple in any aggro deck for a reason. It is very good. Here, what's the best thing we can do against it before that happens, before they play Art of War, like a security measure of Spinal Crushing, Crippling Crushing, or any card or any attack action card that gets pummeled, to make it not as strong as it is. Terra Sunder settles it most of the time, so it doesn't go overboard. And if it's an arsenal, it's always good to just come on and conquer it with a pummel backup. So as long as any of our disruption spells or disruption plans hit a card, it's not that difficult to deal with it. If it comes out when you don't have any of the disruption spells in your hand and you don't play any, it will hit hard. But you have possibilities to make it hit less hard as it normally should. So I'm not that scared of it. I have cards that are way more annoying than Art of War, because we know how to handle Art of War, but it can still get us. I'm not saying it's not dangerous at all. It is very dangerous, but mostly you can handle it. Next up, Salty Wound. I don't need to say anything about that, I guess. It's a very, very strong card if they just pull up an attack chain action, a chain of attack action cards that hit also. Where is it? With Kodachis, with Phoenix Flame. Some 2 of any go again cards. Let's take annoying ones, since I put out some annoying cards already. For example, like this Kodachi for 1, Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi Draconic, Blaze Headlong, Phoenix Flame, which is still 1 resource left, which they can use to play anything that costs 1. Maybe erase Reflex on the Phoenix Flame or the Blaze Headlong in order to make it hit. And after that, coming in with a Salty Wound, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If nothing gets blocked here. So let's just run with 7 damage. Then they can crack Tide Flippers to attack with another Salty Wound, or just come in with a, where is it? lava burst at the end for 5, which will be 1, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, plus 7 would be 16, 21 damage threatened. If it only comes in for 7. If it comes in for 9, it's even more. 23. And that's something that Salted Wound can do. I already explained lava bursts in the same run. I think those are interchangeable. Most of the time this one is a 0 that actually is yellow, so early game you can pitch it to attack with Kodachis. But most of the time you just want to Arsenal it or anything like that. If another 4 comes into that turn, on top of that, it can even go up to 30 damage. And Kodachi 5 can do that more than once a game, if he's lucky. So, here we go with the annoying cards that we have here. That one is done. Okay. Now I'm coming in with a card that is annoying for me in any matchup that can run it. Blaze Headlong. It's just 0-4 go again. It's just very, very strong. And if it's the third chain link, and you want to make this trigger, you need a defense reaction or use your equipment or 2 cards from hand in order to prevent this one from triggering. So yeah, this is just annoying. That's the reason why I mostly keep a defense reaction in arsenal. Enlightened Strike is also pretty annoying. If you were able to do the one thing that is the most efficient way to deal 5, they can just swing for 7, which is still pretty much damage, and you need to respect the 7 damage as well, so you can just take everything, except if you have a very good hand. What's good against him is also good against us, here again with the proxy, because it's the original one, or the real one is in my sideboard from Bravo. It hits us as bad as it hits them. Biggest reason for that is we only have one of these. Of course, the first time it's going in, we can prevent the worst, but as soon as it's the second or third time, we're going to struggle with that as well. Now for some no-brainers, this one makes another one Draconic Chaining. This is only annoying in Kodachi 5, where they can use Kodachis to attack with Draconic in order to get their Draconic Chain Links for the Phoenix Flame, and also Snatch, which is also annoying in every aggro deck. And Snatch especially in combination with Even Bigger Than That, which is the tech I'm using here for this deck, since I think it's nearly too close to impossible to efficiently beat with Bravo. Even Bigger Than That is used after the first Kodachi hit. You swing with Kodachi, swing with second Kodachi before damage. Even Bigger Than That. Opt 2 here. Oh, it needs to deal more damage than we already dealt. Okay. Oh, it's a Command and Conquer. We take it on hand. We get a Quicken token, which will be represented like that for this video. Quicken token. This goes to the grave. And since we had Command and Conquer, we can pitch anything that is enough, which also would be a red one since we have one floating. This red one to come in for 6 go again. If it hits, draw a card. That's the very annoying part about it. Also, Enlightened Strike can come in for 5, draw a card, go again, or 7 go again. So you have very many things to use this for. Also, Snatch 4 go again. You can give these few cards that don't have go again. And it also replaces itself since you draw a card after that. Yeah, so that are the most annoying plays from Fi. If it's Ember Blade, they mostly try to combo off, but you can prevent the combo with pretty much any crush effect from going too far. Now, equipment. What is the equipment they will use? In my experience, or at least what I do against Bravo, if I'm on Fi, I'm using Tide Flippers since I don't run any other like piece. For the leg piece, I use Flamescale Furnace for the chest piece, for blocking. This one is just to give go again. You don't need Arcane Barrier against Bravo, of course. And Mask of Momentum as a headpiece, which threatens many card draws, which is also kind of a replacement for the Tunic. Since you draw more cards, the Tunic won't be as efficient since you can just pitch more cards in order to play more cards. This deck also mostly doesn't use all the pitched resources you have, but most of it. Tiger Stripe Shuko for the block. So we have a fridge of 6 and 1. So in total we have 7 block against us from the equipment. So that means 1 crush will be prevented just by equipment blocks. Mostly this will be the loadout they use against you, and if they're not using Kodachis, they will be using an Emberblade and a Mask of the Pouncing Legs, maybe even a Tunic, to make the Art of War turns even more efficient, since you don't need to pitch anything for Art of War, you can just play with the Tunic resource, and they will end up with 5 cards in hand instead of 4. Yeah. I think this list feels worse to play against than this list or this list with Tunic, since this list will be disrupted with any of our crush effects. And if they make their big turn with cracking Pouncing Links, they don't have a head equipment anymore, and they won't be able to defend against any of the big crushes. They use cards from hand to do that then. So yeah. Now to the conclusion, which I will also put a timestamp into the video so you can just watch the conclusion if you want, since I'm already recording since close to 40 minutes in How to Beat Fi, which is longer than a game takes most of the times. You will have to be the active player here. You don't just prevent damage and block. You are the active player here. You need to disrupt in order to prevent even more damage. And if you find the right distribution of your most efficient cards against Fi early enough, you are pretty good or you're pretty favored to win. If you miss them in the first 2 turns, you're most likely to lose, except maybe for Emberblade Fi. So you will more likely lose against a Fi that uses Kodachis, and you will be more happy to battle one with Emberblade, since your disruption spells do more in this matchup. So I thank you for listening to me. I hope you will crush your next Fi matchup like Bravo should. And if you have any questions or any things I didn't tackle here about that matchup or any other matchup, just write it in the comments, ask me on Twitter or in the Discord, wherever you want. I should start to put my socials in the description, I think, so you can actually find it. So yeah, see you around.